The mare balked at nothing or what should have been nothing. Clay Bennett pulled the reins. Squinting through snow that fell like ash from a burned-out sky. Late November had teeth in Montana territory, and twilight came early this far from town. "Easy, girl," he murmured, dismounting. His boots sank into fresh powder at the Bennett Creek crossing. The mare's ears pinned back, nostrils flaring at something Clay couldn't see. Then he saw it. A basket, half buried in the drift where the creek bent east. Woven willow, the kind that took skilled hands and time. Clay's heart kicked hard against his ribs as he waded through snow that grabbed at his knees. Inside, wrapped in a shawl embroidered with initials he couldn't quite make out in the dying light, a baby. A girl, he thought, though it was hard to tell through the blue tinge of her lips and the frost gathering on tiny eyelashes. She wasn't crying. That scared him more than if she had been. Clay hadn't held an infant since his son died in his wife's arms 2 years back. Since Sarah herself stopped breathing 3 days after. Since he'd buried them both under cottonwoods and sworn never to feel that kind of breaking again. His hands shook as he lifted the baby free. She weighed nothing. Everything. Her chest rose and fell in shallow gasps. Minutes from gone. Maybe less. 3 miles to shelter, he said aloud, as if speaking made it real. You won't make it if I'm careful. He tucked her inside his coat, against his chest where his heart hammered panic and prayer in equal measure. The cold burned through his shirt, but the baby's skin felt colder. Clay mounted in one motion, keeping her pressed tight. The mare sensed his urgency and lunged forward through the snow. Behind them, fresh powder erased the basket. The tracks everything. Like the world wanted to pretend this hadn't happened. Guess you're my family now, Clay whispered into the wind. Half to the baby, half to God, half to Sarah's ghost. The math didn't matter. He rode hard for home. The baby's cry could crack iron. Clay's cabin was one room, stone fireplace, bare necessities. He'd let it go cold before riding to town for supplies. Now the fire was embers and the temperature inside wasn't much better than out. His hands fumbled with flint and steel. The baby screamed not the angry cry of a healthy infant, but something desperate and fading. He got kindling smoking, then flame, fed it larger pieces with shaking fingers. Hold on, he said. Just hold on. He'd delivered calves, set broken bones on horses, buried his wife with his own shovel. But this sound paralyzed him in ways nothing else had. Sarah used to heat milk for orphaned animals, he remembered that much. Clay found a bottle, poured goat's milk from the cold box, held it too close to flame and burned his hand. Cursed. Tried again. Tested it on his wrist like he'd seen Sarah do. The baby refused it at first, turning her head, still crying. Then hunger won, and she latched desperately, gulping air and milk together. Silence fell like snow. Clay stood in the middle of his cabin, this tiny creature in his arms, and had no idea what came next. She was burning up. He could feel fever through the blankets. Her breathing rattled wrong. He tried laying her in his bed. She screamed. Tried the chair. Screamed. So he paced, rocking her awkwardly, humming hymns his mother sang when he was small. Nothing worked. Near 3 a.m, exhaustion made him honest. I don't know what I'm doing, he told her, but I won't let you die. That's all I got. Maybe she heard something true in that. Maybe she was just too tired to fight. Either way, she went still against his shoulder, her small body curving into his like she fit there. Clay was afraid to move, afraid to breathe too hard. As gray light crept through the window, he realized 2 things: she was still burning with fever, and he needed help he didn't have. The nearest doctor was in town, 6 miles through snow. Questions would follow: whose baby? Where'd she come from? What was a widowed rancher doing with an infant? He looked down at her flushed face. Didn't matter what followed. She needed more than he could give alone. Clay wrapped her in every blanket he owned, rebuilt the fire to last. and rode toward Bennett's Creek as the sun rose blood red over frozen plains. The bell over Harmon's general store rang like a courthouse gavel. Every head turned. Clay Bennett, known for keeping to himself since his wife passed, stood in the doorway holding a bundle that moved and whimpered. 15 townsfolk stopped mid-conversation. Ruth Winslow reached him first. She ran the boarding house, had kind eyes and capable hands. Clay Lord above, is that... Found her, he said quickly. Creek Crossing, yesterday twilight. She's got fever. Ruth touched the baby's forehead, frowned. Come on. She guided him to the counter, already gathering supplies. Sarah, fetch goat milk, the good kind. Tom, get clean cloth for diapers. Move. People moved, but they watched, whispered. Sheriff Tom Briggs approached slowly, hat in hand, good man, fair man, but a lawman first. That your baby? Clay. No, sir, like I said, found her. Basket in the snow. No note. No tracks. Fresh powder covered everything. The sheriff studied him. You aiming to keep her... Clay's jaw set. Till her people are found. If they're found. And if they ain't... Before Clay could answer, Warren Kent pushed through the crowd. Bank owner, town council. The kind of man who measured everything by property and propriety. A single man raising a girl child. Kent's voice carried, that ain't proper. Bennett. Territorial Orphanage in Butte takes foundlings. They've got women. Resources. Something cold settled in Clay's chest. She was left in my path. Reckon that means something. Means someone abandoned her. Kent pressed. Don't mean you're fit to parent. Ruth Winslow stepped between them. Warren Kent, this child needs medicine and warmth, not your politics. Clay's doing what's right. I'm doing what the law requires, Kent said stiffly. Clay looked down at the baby barely breathing yesterday, fever hot today, completely dependent on strangers. I'm calling her Hope, he said, voice steady. Seemed right, given the circumstances. The room went quiet. Naming her made it real, made it a claim. Ruth smiled. Hope Bennett, that's a good name. She turned to Clay. I'll teach you what you need to know. Feeding, washing, reading her signs. You won't be alone in this. Some folks nodded approval. Others looked away. Sheriff Briggs cleared his throat. Keep me informed. Clay. Any news about family? You report it. Understood. Yes, sir. As Clay paid for supplies. Ruth walked him to the door. She kept her voice low. There was a Mary Red left town 3 months back. Cattle Baron's daughter Eli Red from up north. She was pregnant, unwed. Nobody's seen her since. Clay looked down at Hope, sleeping now against his shoulder. The shawl she'd been wrapped in had initials stitched in fine thread. Mr. His hands tightened on the basket of supplies. Thank you, Ruth. Don't thank me yet. This road you're walking, it ain't gonna be easy. Good things never are, Clay said, and carried Hope back into the cold. December came in with snow and silence. Clay Bennett learned more in 6 weeks than in 6 years of ranching. Babies, he discovered, had opinions about everything: temperature, hunger, wetness, boredom. Hope had more opinions than most. Ruth Winslow visited daily, teaching with patience Clay didn't know existed. How to wash clothes without scalding delicate skin. How to read Hope's different cries. The sharp one meant hunger. The building wail meant a wet diaper. The exhausted whimper meant she needed to sleep but didn't know how. Talk to her, Ruth said one afternoon, showing him how to fold cloth. Babies need voices like they need milk. So Clay talked. Told her about the land, the weather, his plans for spring planting. Read to her from Sarah's Bible Genesis, mostly, because beginnings felt right. And the Lord set a mark upon Cain, lest any finding him should kill him. He read one night. Even the marked ones get protection. Little Hope, don't that give a man pause? Hope stared at him like she understood. Maybe she did. The community began to soften. Women brought baby clothes, hand-stitched blankets. Men nodded respectfully when Clay came to town for supplies. Even Sheriff Briggs admitted, "You're doing right by that child." Clay, more than right. Week 5. Everything changed. Clay was changing Hope's diaper, still clumsy at it, but better than before when she smiled at him. Not gas, not accident, a real smile, eyes crinkling. Directed straight at his face. He froze. Then tears came like spring runoff, fast, unexpected, unstoppable. First he'd cried since standing over Sarah's grave with dirt on his hands. "Well now," he managed, voice broken, "guess we're gonna be just fine." That evening, Ruth stayed late. They sat by the fire after Hope fell asleep, drinking coffee that had gone lukewarm. Clay found himself talking about Sarah, about their son who never drew breath, about the 2 years he'd spent half alive. "You were meant to find her," Ruth said quietly. "Some things ain't coincidence." Their hands were close on the table, almost touching. Clay looked at Ruth like he was seeing her for the first time. Kind eyes, strong hands, a widow same as him. Maybe. He pulled back. "I'm still figuring out how to be half alive again. Don't know about more than that." Ruth smiled. Sad but understanding. "That's all right. Hope's teaching you. I can wait." 2 days later. A letter arrived from Denver. Official seal. Lawyer's script. Clay stared at it on his table for 3 days like it was a rattlesnake coiled and waiting. When he finally opened it, the words felt like winter coming back. The letter sat between them like something dying. Clay had ridden to town, found Ruth at the boarding house, and handed it to her without speaking. She read it twice, lips pressing thinner each time. "Clay, read it again," he said. "Tell me it says something different." It didn't. Ambrose Keating, attorney at law, Denver, Colorado, representing Eli Red, prominent Montana cattle baron. His daughter Mary had died of fever 6 weeks prior. Before dying, she'd confessed to leaving her infant daughter with a good man on the Bennett Road. She'd watched Clay from afar after her father banished her, knew his character, trusted him with her child. Now Eli Red demanded his granddaughter be returned to his estate. "He's got lawyers," Clay said quietly. "Money! Blood claim! What do I got?" Ruth gripped his hands across the table. Her fingers were warm, steady. "You've got every midnight feeding, every fever you walked her through. Every moment that child needed someone and found you there, that's what you've got. Judge won't see it that way. Then we make him see it." Clay pulled away, paced to the window. Outside, Bennett's Creek went about its business, people who didn't know his world was ending. "Tell me about Mary Red." Ruth's voice went soft. "Brilliant girl, gentle. Was engaged to a school teacher named Thomas Webb Goodman. No money. Eli forbade the marriage, threatened violence. Mary refused to back down." She paused. "Thomas died in a ranch accident 6 months back. Folks whispered it wasn't an accident. Mary fled to Denver the next week. Pregnant," Clay said, "and heartbroken. Eli Red is a hard man. Clay controls everything, everyone. Mary knew he'd do the same to her baby. So she left Hope with a stranger. She left Hope with you." The door opened. Warren Kent stepped in without knocking. "Bennett, heard about the red letter." His smile didn't reach his eyes. "Terrible situation. But family's family. Blood matters." "What do you want?" Warren. "Just offering counsel. Man like Eli Red, he's got connections. Judges, politicians. Fighting him would be..." Kent shrugged. "Unwise. Best to let the child go to her rightful family." Clay crossed the room slowly. "Get out." "I'm trying to help." You're trying to get Red's banking business. Now get out before I help you out. Kent left, but his smile widened. You'll see reason eventually. When the door closed, Ruth said, He's circulating a petition. Concerned citizens asking that Hope be placed with her blood family? Clay looked at Hope. Sleeping in the basket Ruth kept at the boarding house. 2 months old now. Starting to laugh. Recognized his voice, his face. Called him in her baby way home. When's Red arriving? 1 week, Clay nodded slowly. Then we got 1 week to figure out how to fight money and blood with nothing but love. Love ain't nothing, Ruth said fiercely. It's everything. Outside, the first snow of real winter began to fall. Eli Red arrived like winter itself, cold, inevitable, unforgiving. The town hall was packed. Every citizen who could walk had come to watch. Clay stood near the back, Hope in his arms, Ruth beside him. Sheriff Briggs had called the meeting to discuss the matter civilly before courts get involved. Civility died the moment Red walked in. He was 60, maybe older, but hard as railroad iron. Gray beard, expensive coat, eyes that measured everything and found most of it wanting. 2 lawyers flanked him. A hired nurse followed, ready to take the baby. Warren Kent rose immediately. Mr. Red, on behalf of Bennett's Creek, let me express our sympathies for your loss. Your daughter Mary was... Where's the child? Red's voice cut through pleasantries like an axe. Sheriff Briggs gestured. Clay Bennett's been caring for her since November. Red's gaze found Clay, measured him, dismissed him. Bring her here. No, sir, Clay said quietly. The room went silent. I beg your pardon. Said no. She's content where she is. Red's jaw worked. That child is my granddaughter, my blood, my heir. You've no legal claim. Got a moral one. One of Red's lawyers stepped forward. Mr. Bennett, my client is prepared to offer $5,000 as compensation for your trouble. That's more than generous. She ain't trouble, Clay interrupted. She's my daughter, and she ain't for sale. The room erupted. Half the crowd shouted support for Clay. The other half argued for Red. Sheriff Briggs had to bang his rifle butt on the floor for silence. Warren Kent produced a document, the petition. I have here 30 signatures from concerned citizens. They attest that Mr. Bennett, while well-meaning, is unfit for custody. He's unmarried, isolated, lacks adequate resources. He's loved her, Ruth Winslow said, standing. Her voice shook but held every day, every night, every moment she needed someone. That's more than resources. That's everything. Who are you? Red demanded. Ruth Winslow. I run the boarding house, and I know something about losing children to wealthy relatives who think money matters more than love. She told them, voice steady now, about her niece. 5 years old, orphaned, placed with a distant uncle who had property and standing. The uncle neglected her, let her die of preventable illness while his money sat in banks. Money don't make a parent, Ruth said. Love does daily. Unglamorous, exhausting love. The kind Clay Bennett's shown every single day since he found Hope freezing in that basket. The room divided visibly. Some nodded. Others looked away. Red stood. What can you give her that I cannot? Bennett, speak honestly. Clay met his eyes. A father who chose her. Not a grandfather who drove her mother to an early grave. Red's hand shook. For a moment. Something cracked in that iron face. Then it sealed again. Judge Franklin arrives tomorrow. We'll settle this legally. That night, Judge Franklin, a territorial appointee who owed his position to men like Red, granted temporary custody to Eli Red pending a formal hearing in 3 weeks. Clay had until dawn to surrender Hope. The town emptied. Ruth stayed. We'll appeal, she said. Find another judge. Go to the territorial capital. Ruth. Clay's voice was gentle. You know how this ends. She did. They both did. Clay carried Hope home through falling snow. She slept against his shoulder, trusting, completely unaware her world was ending. He'd buried his wife and son with dry eyes. But tonight, holding Hope while she slept. Clay Bennett wept like winter rain. The cabin was too quiet. He did everything one last time, midnight feeding, changing her, rocking her to sleep while humming hymns. He memorized her face, the way she grabbed his finger when he touched her palm, the small sounds she made dreaming, near dawn. He packed her basket, the clothes Ruth had sewn, toys men from town had carved, the embroidered shawl Mary Red's last gift to her daughter. He wrote a letter in careful script, to be given to Hope when she was old enough to read, "Your mama loved you enough to save you. She chose me because she knew I'd keep you safe till you could be strong. You were wanted. Every day, every moment, you saved me when I was drowning. Don't ever forget that." He folded it, placed it in the basket beneath her blankets. When Eli Red's carriage arrived, pulled by matched horses worth more than Clay's entire ranch, the hired nurse stepped out with professional efficiency. She reached for Hope. Hope screamed. Not the normal cry of an upset baby, something primal. She arched away from the stranger's hands, reaching back for Clay with desperate fingers. The nurse tried to soothe her. Hope screamed louder. "She needs time to adjust," the nurse said. Voice strained, but Hope wouldn't adjust. She screamed until her face went purple, refused the bottle, wouldn't be consoled. Just kept reaching toward Clay, who stood in his doorway with fists clenched and heartbreaking. Eli Red climbed down from the carriage, took Hope himself. She screamed in his arms, batting at his face. Red stared at the baby, his granddaughter. His blood and something in him cracked. He saw the shawl, the one Mary had embroidered during long nights alone. He saw the basket Mary had woven with hands he'd never noticed were skilled. He saw his daughter's desperate final act of love saving her baby from him. What would Mary want? Clay's voice was quiet, but cut through Hope's screaming. Red looked up. His face was wet. "What? Your daughter. What would she want for Hope?" The old man's shoulders bowed. She'd want her raised with kindness. His voice broke. "Not money, not legacy, just kindness. Same kindness I never showed Mary." The sky opened up. Not snow, a blizzard. Vicious, sudden. The kind that killed travelers. The nurse looked panicked. "Mr. Red, we need to leave now or we'll be trapped." "Then we're trapped," Red said. They spent 3 days in Clay's cabin. The blizzard raged outside while inside. Red watched. Watched Clay heat bottles at 3 a.m. Watched him pace with Hope when she couldn't sleep. Watched Ruth arrive through the storm with medicine when Hope's fever spiked. Watched the way she and Clay worked as partners without needing words. He saw a family. On the second night, Red held Hope while Clay cooked. She didn't scream this time. Maybe she was used to him. Maybe she sensed something changed. The old man's hands were gentle. Tears dripped into her blanket. "I killed my daughter," he whispered. "My pride, my need to control, I drove Mary away, threatened the man she loved. He died because of me. And Mary knew it. She ran because she feared I'd ruin her baby the same way." Clay kept stirring stew. "So don't. What, don't ruin Hope? Be better. That's what Mary's giving you, a second chance to be the grandfather you weren't a father." Red looked at this simple rancher who'd taught him more in 3 days than 60 years had managed. When the storm broke, Red didn't call for his carriage. The hearing convened on a cold January morning. The whole town packed into the courthouse. Clay stood without a lawyer, couldn't afford one anyway. Judge Franklin presided. "Mr. Red, you've brought suit for custody of the minor child called Hope Bennett." "Correct." "Your Honor," Red's lawyer began. "My client has every legal and moral right." "Your Honor," Red interrupted. Standing. "I withdraw my claim." The courtroom erupted. Franklin banged his gavel. Mr. Red, do you understand? I understand that my daughter chose this man for a reason. Red's voice was steady. Mary knew me. Knew I'd smother her child with control and expectation. Same as I did to her. She chose love over legacy. I won't dishonor her final act of courage. He turned to Clay. I'd like to establish a trust fund for Hope's education. No strings. You'll have full custody. I'd like to visit sometimes, if that's acceptable. Clay looked at this man who'd terrified him, who'd nearly destroyed everything. Saw grief, regret, and the first shoots of redemption. Hope should know her grandfather. Clay said, long as you remember you're a grandfather now, not a king. Red smiled small, broken, real. I'll remember. Warren Kent stood, face red. Your Honor. The petition, Sheriff Briggs said loudly, has been withdrawn by its signatories, including me. I signed it thinking money mattered. I was wrong. One by one, men and women stood, apologized, recanted. Kent sat down slowly, face pale. Judge Franklin looked at Clay Bennett, simple rancher, widowed and alone until he wasn't. The court recognizes that family is built, not born. Custody granted to Clay Bennett. Guardianship formalized. Ruth Winslow gripped Clay's hand. Hope, sitting on his lap, laughed at nothing and everything. Outside, as people filed out into winter sun, Red approached. I don't deserve forgiveness. No, sir, Clay agreed. But Hope deserves a grandfather. So I reckon we'll all learn together. The old man nodded, reached out carefully, touched Hope's cheek. She grabbed his finger, held tight. Guess you're my family now, too, Red whispered. Spring came to Bennett Creek the way hope comes quietly at first, then all at once. Clay's cabin had changed. A new room addition, built by men who'd once doubted him. Ruth's curtains in the windows. Hope's toys scattered across the floor. The basket hung on the wall now, no longer a symbol of abandonment, but of fate's strange gifts. Hope sat up these days, babbled constantly, laughed at everything. She had Clay's stubbornness and Mary's gentle eyes. 8 months old and absolutely convinced the world existed just for her entertainment. Ruth came for Sunday dinner. Had been coming every Sunday for 2 months. The town had stopped whispering, started planning a wedding instead. Though nobody'd asked if there'd be one. Folks just knew. Read her another story, Ruth said. Washing dishes while Clay dried. Domestic, easy, home. Clay sat in the rocking chair, Hope on his lap. Sarah's Bible open to Ruth 1:16. Where you go, I will go. He read, Where you lodge, I will lodge. Your people shall be my people. Hope grabbed the pages with sticky fingers. He laughed. That afternoon, they rode to Bennett Creek Crossing, the place where everything started. Clay had built a small cairn there, stones marking sacred ground. He planted wildflowers around it, Mary's favorites. According to old letters Ruth had found, forget-me-nots. Mostly delicate blue petals that survived mountain winters. Your mama loved you enough to give you the best chance, Clay told Hope. She babbled back, serious as a judge. She was brave, strong, and she's why we're all here now. A rider approached Eli Red, visiting for the 3rd time this month. He came with gifts but didn't overstay, played gently with Hope, told stories about Mary's childhood before things went wrong. Do you think she'd forgive me? He asked quietly, standing by the cairn. Clay considered. I think she already did. That's why she made sure you'd meet Hope this way when you were ready to be a grandfather instead of a king. Red nodded, wiping his eyes. I'll keep trying to deserve it. That evening, back at the cabin, Clay stood on the porch watching sunset paint the mountains gold. Ruth beside him, Hope in her arms, his late wife's Bible open on the table inside. Hope reached up with both hands, grabbed Clay's beard, pulled herself forward. Ruth laughed. She knows her daddy. Clay smiled, no longer broken, no longer alone. Guess you're my family now. All of you, inside. The fire burned warm. Outside. The last snow had finally melted. Winter was just a memory now. And spring, at last, was home. The end.